Hello.
Hello.
I've got two questions. The first one is, how do I stay present with my family members when we're all together? And this comes up at dinner time. I can be present with myself and present with one family member, but when there's three of them together or two of them together, my presence goes out the window and I get caught up in the drama of what's going on. And my second question is from my husband, who's not here tonight, and he was recently diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And his question to you is, how can he heal this?
Well, let's start with the second one.
Okay.
There's something more important. Whether or not it can be healed, I don't know. There is something more important than the healing of that physical condition or any physical condition. And that which is more important than the healing, which I'm going to just briefly talk about now, is also that which in some cases brings about the healing. But that's not the main thing. That which is more important than the healing is to use the condition. In this case, it's a deterioration of the physical form, which comes slowly over years, as far as I understand. To use that to push you into intense presence practice. That's all you can do. So allow it to push you into that which changes the entire vibrational frequency of the physical body. When you truly live in presence, which affects every cell of the body, the entire frequency of the physical form changes. If you do intense body awareness, you can feel that for yourself. It's an enormously enlivening energy field, and that practice also burns up the ego. So the opportunity there is you have an enormous motivation to embrace the state of consciousness that we call presence. That's the most vital thing. And that may bring about healing, or if it does not bring about healing, it may delay considerably the onset or the process of deterioration that comes with that disease. I mentioned in the New Earth that when I was a graduate student, every day in the cafeteria I would observe the physicist Stephen Hawkins, who was eating lunch there every day, while being fed lunch. He had a similar condition. It wasn't called it's not called Parkinson. It's in England they call it a motor neuron disease, or do they call it that here? But anyway, that's his condition. At that time he wasn't world famous. He was just well known in the university. And everybody said, and it was common knowledge, that he had been given, I think it was 3 or 4 years, maximum 5 years to live. And that was when 30 years ago or more. So he had this deterioration. All the doctors said, just a few more years, that's all you have. 30 years later, he's still alive. Yes, he's incapacitated, but his mind is not. And he has come, as I mentioned in the New Earth, he may not be, I don't believe he is spiritually awake, but he has entered a state of considerable surrender to his condition. There's nothing in him that has created negativity as a reaction to his physical condition, and it's very rare. I could see that when I looked into his eyes. There was no unhappiness in his eyes. I mean, if anybody is justified in being unhappy, it was him, because even at that time he couldn't move anymore, he couldn't speak. He hadn't invented this machine that he now uses to communicate. So all you had was croaking sounds, and somebody who was slumped in his wheelchair and needed people to feed him. If anybody is justified in being unhappy, it was him, sitting, and everybody felt such pity for him, but he didn't. When I looked into his eyes, I saw he didn't have self-pity, and so there was nothing else for him to do but think about his work, and so his thinking became quite productive. There must have been some presence arising in him, so that his thinking became quite inspired in his field. So the predictions that the doctors make are not necessarily correct, especially if surrender happens. So surrender, it's not uncommon for the state of surrender to give you much more to slow down the progress of the disease. It sometimes also happens that through surrender, which brings about presence, that healing happens. But healing is a beautiful byproduct of the arising of presence, which sometimes occurs. But don't expect it necessarily to occur. Considering to the importance of the arising of presence, the healing of the physical body is a secondary matter, because the arising of presence is so much more vitally important, because it is part of the entire evolutionary impulse of the universe, compared to which, whether this body gets healed or not, and by getting healed lives a few more years, a little bit longer than it would otherwise live, is not that important. So that's, as you are both embarked already on the awakening process, you can also help him. It's wonderful if the two of you are practicing presence. He would quickly become more advanced than you, because his motivation is so much stronger through the physical condition. So it's a beautiful opportunity. Don't believe in all the predictions. Welcome healing if it happens, but don't believe that healing is that which matters most here. Whether he becomes healed or not, I don't know what age he is now. What age is he now?
He's 59.
59. Okay, whether he gets healed or not, most likely 40 years from now he's going to be dead. So in the meantime, what really matters is whether the flowering of consciousness happened through that particular form, and whether he has 40 years to live or 10 years to live is less important, as far as the flowering of consciousness is what matters. And now your relatives.
My children and my husband. Yeah.
Yeah. So when they come together, then
at the dinner table, and there's dramas going on. Yeah.
So how do you lose presence? You get drawn into...
I get drawn into it. I also have a special needs daughter, the younger one, and she wants my attention. My husband wants my attention, and I have a teenage daughter who usually doesn't want my attention at all. Yeah, but it's a dynamic there, and then my husband and my teenage daughter going at it, and me wanting to protect her and then take care of the younger one's needs. I basically just want to run away, not come back home. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's also very good practice. You have to just be aware of how, if you are able to not lose when you give attention, as you must give attention. Of course, it's wonderful to give attention to your child or to another human being, but not to lose yourself in the giving of attention, so that you are connected with the source of attention, which is within you, without losing this connectedness with the source, then your attention can flow and you can say something to your child, say something to the other, without losing yourself in that movement. And again, inner body awareness can be the anchor for staying present. So as you sit at the table, you have to feel yourself, feel your inner being. And then you're rooted in being, and then you can give attention. And you can feel the connectedness with being. You're not lost then in the mental realm. They may be, but something, if there's only one person who stays connected, it usually affects the entire energy field in the room. In the same way that a deeply unconscious person also affects the entire energy field in the room. And if there is a deeply unconscious person there, for example, a deeply negative person, that may not be the case in your family, then there would have to be, your presence would have to be quite intense to counteract that. It doesn't fight it. You don't fight the darkness. Just the light needs to be stronger. You turn up the dimmer switch. But you have to turn it up anyway to some extent as you sit with people at home. There's also the additional factor that people with whom you share a lot of past, it's sometimes more difficult to stay present with them than people with whom you don't share so much past, people, acquaintances, friends. But family members, that goes back often a very long time. But it's a lovely challenge too. So practice when you're just with one or two people there, and then there's enough presence power in you so that you can sustain presence even when there are more. Now it's required, what is required here is vigilance of your own energy, your own consciousness. Without the vigilance, we could call it attention too. As one Zen master explains, that the essence of Zen is just this, the raised finger, which means, that was his explanation for Zen. That's all that's needed. It is attention. That means alert presence, vigilance. So it needs to be particularly strong when you're in the presence of a number of people who are mind-dominated, as most humans still are. It needs to be particularly strong when you're with somebody who is mentally disturbed. Intense vigilance, intense presence required. It needs to be particularly strong when you have a physical condition, a serious so-called illness, then that can be the motivating force for intense presence of vigilance. So this is, you can see how much more helpful the raised finger is than conceptual explanations. You cannot conceptually explain what presence is or what vigilance is to the mind, because it immediately takes you beyond the mind. And sometimes people ask, I had somebody after a week-long retreat some years ago who asked, can you just give us, just explain again the concept of presence? I just want to hear again what it really actually is. I didn't quite get it. The entire week was the practice of presence. But his mind said, I didn't quite get it. Of course it didn't get it, because he was expecting to understand conceptually, and he thought, if I just explain a little bit more, then he'll really become present. No, I've already said too much. This presence is just attention. Attention is non-conceptual intelligence. It's the spacious awareness, this. attention basically means there's little or no thought. There's just consciousness, just the light. So you shine the light on people. And then you can speak and the light is still there. And you speak. The presence is there and the words. As I'm speaking to you now, the presence is there, but the words are also there. They come out of the presence. And if there's a child here that says, "Daddy, Daddy, he just took away my toy, tell him not to do that," or whatever they say, you can look at him in that lovely presence in which there's compassion and benevolence. It's all part of that. And you look at the child and say, okay, well, just don't talk now. You say whatever comes to you without losing yourself in the drama, the daily drama, the drama of daily existence, the nervousness of that. So that's your job.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.